Harzen. This Harz Mountain, a railway there, 30 degrees. I have one more cola. Put the video public, but Dennis video. My YouTube money did not get that today, but I think that will get tomorrow. I have to pay my old mom some money, but I got 3 pair of shorts like this one. Got 3 pair of good shorts and got a bit French food. So I need to pay for that when I get the money, and I need to save like $150 for my bills next month and August next month again. I only have like $30 left. I barely have any money left of my pension. Next month I have like $30 left maybe. But I even have to pay my Netflix account like, I don't know, $20. But that's in the middle of January. So I'm waiting for my YouTube money, because actually I don't have any money right now. And this YouTube money, that's just it's like $350. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. This money really helped me a lot. This money helped me a lot, because I'm not spending much money right now, because I just sit at home. I stop drinking alcohol, have a long break from alcohol. I don't smoke cigarettes and stop drinking coffee every day. Just sit home in my apartment eating cheap food from this little discount store, paying off my debt, and then I do this. Yes, but this is not my language. My language is Danish, so I understand a lot part, but it would be more easy to understand if this was in Danish, but I don't like to record this in Danish. And I don't think you can find this kind of high quality on the Danish Wikipedia. I don't like to record it in Danish. Why should do that? Nobody understands Danish on YouTube.
Thomas Jefferson thought of himself as a man of the frontier and was keenly interested in expanding and exploring the West. 46. Jefferson's Louisiana Purchase of 1803 doubled the size of the nation at the cost of $15 million, or about 4 cents per acre. $271 million in 2021 dollars, less than 42 cents per acre. 47. Federalists opposed the expansion, but Jeffersonians hailed the opportunity to create millions of new farms to expand the domain of landowning yeomen. The ownership would strengthen the ideal Republican society, based on agriculture, not commerce, governed lightly, and promoting self-reliance and virtue, as well as form the political base for Jeffersonian democracy. 48. France was paid for its sovereignty over the territory in terms of international law. Between 1803 and the 1870s, the federal government purchased the land from the native tribes then in possession of it. 20th century accountants and courts have calculated the value of the payments made to the natives, which included future payments of cash, food, horses, cattle, supplies, buildings, schooling, and medical care. In cash terms, the total paid to the tribes in the area of the Louisiana Purchase amounted to about $2.6 billion, or nearly $9 billion in 2016 dollars. Additional sums were paid to the natives living east of the Mississippi for their lands, as well as payments to natives living in parts of the West outside the Louisiana Purchase. 49. Even before the purchase, Jefferson was planning expeditions to explore and map the lands. He charged Lewis and Clark to explore the Missouri River, and such principal stream of it, as, by its course and communication with the waters of the Pacific Ocean, whether the Columbia, Oregon, Colorado, or any other river may offer the most direct and practicable communication across the continent for commerce. 50. Jefferson also instructed the expedition to study the region's native tribes, including their morals, language, and culture, weather, soil, rivers, commercial trading, and animal and plant life. 51. Entrepreneurs, most notably John Jacob Astor, quickly seized the opportunity and expanded fur trading operations into the Pacific Northwest. Astor's Fort Astoria, later Fort George, at the mouth of the Columbia River, became the first permanent white settlement in that area, although it was not profitable for Astor. He set up the American Fur Company in an attempt to break the hold that the Hudson's Bay Company monopoly had over the region. By 1820, Astor had taken over independent traders to create a profitable monopoly. He left the business as a multimillionaire in 1834. 52. The fur trade. Fur trading at Fort Nez Perces in 1841. As the frontier moved west, trappers and hunters moved ahead of settlers, searching out new supplies of beaver and other skins for shipment to Europe. The hunters were the first Europeans in much of the Old West, and they formed the first working relationships with the Native Americans in the West. 53. 54. They added extensive knowledge of the Northwest terrain, including the important South Pass through the central Rocky Mountains. Discovered about 1812, it later became a major route for settlers to Oregon and Washington. By 1820, however, a new brigade rendezvous system sent company men in brigades cross-country and long expeditions, bypassing many tribes. It also encouraged free trappers to explore new regions on their own. At the end of gathering season, the trappers would rendezvous and turn in their goods for pay at river ports along the Green River, Upper Missouri, and the Upper Mississippi. St. Louis was the largest of the rendezvous towns. By 1830, however, fashions changed and beaver hats were replaced by silk hats, ending the demand for expensive American furs. Thus ended the era of the mountain men, trappers, and scouts such as Jedediah Smith, Hugh Glass, Davy Crockett, Jack O'Mohandro, and others. The trade in beaver fur virtually ceased by 1845. 55. Plate from Audubon's Birds of America, the federal government and westward expansion. There was wide agreement on the need to settle the new territories quickly, but the debate polarized over the price the government should charge. The conservatives and Whigs, typified by the President John Quincy Adams, wanted a moderated pace that charged the newcomers enough to pay the costs of the federal government. The Democrats, however, tolerated a wild scramble for land at very low prices. The final resolution came in the Homestead Law of 1862, with a moderated pace that gave settlers 160 acres free after they worked on it for 5 years. 56. The private profit motive dominated the movement westward. 57. But the federal government played a supporting role in securing the land through treaties and setting up territorial governments, with governors appointed by the president. The federal government first acquired Western Territory through treaties with other nations or native tribes. Then it sent surveyors to map and document the land. 58. By the 20th century, Washington bureaucracies managed the federal lands, such as the General Land Office in the Interior Department. 59. And after 1891, the Forest Service in the Department of Agriculture. 60. After 1900, dam building and flood control became major concerns. 61. Transportation was a key issue, and the Army, especially the Army Corps of Engineers, was given full responsibility for facilitating navigation on the rivers. The steamboat, first used on the Ohio River in 1811, made possible inexpensive travel using the river systems, especially the Mississippi and Missouri rivers and the tributaries. 62. Army expeditions up the Missouri River in 1818-25 allowed engineers to improve the technology. For example, the Army's steamboat Western Engineer of 1819 combined a very shallow draft with one of the earliest stern wheels. In 1819-25, Colonel Henry Atkinson developed keelboats with hand-powered paddle wheels. 63. The federal postal system played a crucial role in national expansion. It facilitated expansion into the West by creating an inexpensive, fast, convenient communication system. Letters from early settlers provided information and boosterism to encourage increased migration to the West, helped scattered families stay in touch and provide mutual help, assisted entrepreneurs to find business opportunities, and made possible regular commercial relationships between merchants and the West and wholesalers and factories back east. The Postal Service likewise assisted the Army in expanding control over the vast Western territories. Widespread circulation of important newspapers by mail, such as the New York Weekly Tribune, facilitated coordination among politicians in different states. The Postal Service helped to integrate already established areas with the frontier, creating a spirit of nationalism and providing a necessary infrastructure. 64. The Army early on assumed the mission of protecting settlers along with the westward expansion trails, a policy that was described by Secretary of War John B. Floyd in 1857. Sad Smiley 65, a line of posts running parallel without frontier, but near to the Indians' usual habitations, placed at convenient distances and suitable positions, and occupied by infantry, would exercise a salutary restraint upon the tribes, who would feel that any foray by their warriors upon few height settlements would meet with prompt retaliation upon their own homes. There was a debate at the time about the best size for the forts, with Jefferson Davis, Winfield Scott, and Thomas G. Supp supporting forts that were larger but fewer in number than Floyd. Floyd's plan was more expensive but had the support of settlers and the general public, who preferred that the military remain as close as possible. The frontier area was vast, and even Davis conceded that concentration would have exposed portions of the frontier to native hostilities without any protection. 65. Scientists, artists, and explorers. The first Fort Laramie as it looked before 1840. Painting from memory by Alfred Jacob Miller. Government and private enterprise sent many explorers to the west. In 1805, 1806, Army Lieutenant Zebulon Pike, 1779-1813, led a party of 20 soldiers to find the headwaters of the Mississippi. Helleter explored the Red and Arkansas rivers in Spanish territory, eventually reaching the Rio Grande. On his return, Pike sighted the peak in Colorado named after him. 66. Major Stephen Harriman Long, 1784-1864, 67, led the Yellowstone and Missouri expeditions of 1819-1820, but his categorizing in 1823 of the Great Plains as arid and useless led to the region getting a bad reputation as the Great American Desert, which discouraged settlement in that area for several decades. 68. In 1811, naturalists Thomas Nuttall, 1786-1859, and John Bradbury, 1768-1823, traveled up the Missouri River documenting and drawing plant and animal life. 69. Artist George Catlin, 1796-1872, painted accurate paintings of Native American culture. Swiss artist Karl Bodmer made compelling landscapes and portraits. 70. John James Audubon, 1785-1851, is famous for classifying and painting in minute details 500 species of birds, published in Birds of America. 71. The most famous of the explorers was John Charles Fremont, 1813-1890, an Army officer in the Corps of Topographical Engineers. He displayed a talent for exploration and a genius at self-promotion that gave him the sobriquet of Pathmarker of the West and led him to the presidential nomination of the new Republican Party in 1856. 72. He led a series of expeditions in the 1840s which answered many of the outstanding geographic questions about the little-known region. He crossed through the Rocky Mountains by 5 different routes and mapped parts of Oregon and California. In 1846-1847, he played a role in conquering California. In 1848-1849, Fremont was assigned to locate a central route through the mountains for the proposed Transcontinental Railroad, but his expedition ended in near disaster when it became lost and was trapped by heavy snow. 73. His reports mixed narrative of exciting adventure with scientific data and detailed practical information for travelers. It caught the public imagination and inspired many to head west. Goeasman says it was monumental in its breadth, a classic of exploring literature. 74. While colleges were springing up across the Northeast, there was little competition on the western frontier for Transylvania University, founded in Lexington, Kentucky, in 1780. It boasted of a law school in addition to its undergraduate and medical programs. Transylvania attracted politically ambitious young men from across the Southwest, including 50 who became United States Senators, 101 representatives, 36 governors, and 34 ambassadors, as well as Jefferson Davis, the President of the Confederacy. 75. Antebellum West. Religion. The established Eastern churches were slow to meet the needs of the frontier. The Presbyterians and Congregationalists, since they depended on well-educated ministers, were short-handed in evangelizing the frontier. They set up a plan of union of 1801 to combine resources on the frontier. 76. 77. Most frontiersmen showed little commitment to religion until traveling evangelists began to appear and produce revivals. The local pioneers responded enthusiastically to these events and, in effect, evolved. Illustration from The Circuit Rider, A Tale of the Heroic Age by Edward Eggleston. The well-organized Methodists sent the Circuit Rider to create and survey a series of churches in a geographical area. Their populist religions, especially during the Second Great Awakening, 1790-1840, which featured outdoor camp meetings lasting a week or more and which introduced many people to organized religion for the first time. One of the largest and most famous camp meetings took place at Cane Ridge, Kentucky, in 1801. 78. The local Baptists set up small independent churches. Baptists abjured centralized authority. Each local church was founded on the principle of independence of the local congregation. On the other hand, bishops of few and organized, centralized Methodists assigned circuit riders to specific areas for several years at a time, then moved them to fresh territory. Several new denominations were formed, of which the largest was the Disciples of Christ. 79, 80, 81. Democracy in the Midwest. Historian Mark Wyman calls Wisconsin a palimpsest of layer upon layer of peoples and forces, each imprinting permanent influences. He identified those layers as multiple frontiers over 3 centuries: Native American frontier, French frontier, English frontier, fur trade frontier, mining frontier and the logging frontier. Finally, the coming of the railroad brought the end of the frontier. 82. Frederick Jackson Turner grew up in Wisconsin during its last frontier stage, and in his travels around the state, he could see the layers of social and political development. One of Turner's last students, Mel Curtius, did an in-depth analysis of local Wisconsin history to test Turner's thesis about democracy. Turner's view was that American democracy involved widespread participation in the making of decisions